So before interview, Marking, Mpo,
Yes.
tell me a little bit. You are with RISA.
Yes.
What is RISA? What do you do? Tell me about it.
All right, so RISA stands for Research and Innovation Systems for Africa. And it is a fund by the UK government, specifically the UK International Development. It's in 6 African countries, Ethiopia, Ghana, Kenya, Rwanda, Nigeria, South Africa. And going into those countries, we want to help strengthen the ecosystems. So instead of supporting individual ecosystem players, we want to support ecosystems that can then enable, let's say, your startup companies, your researchers, and so forth.
Okay, fantastic. So we just spoke to Jude, who's one of your partners in Dima Health. It's not only healthcare that you guys are involved with. What type of problems are you looking to solve?
Okay, so we're looking to solve developmental problems, but also not just any. We're looking to solve problems that will have a systemic impact on the ecosystem. And sustainability is also a main thing. So we do not just, for example, want to come and hand out food parcels and then walk away. You know, the whole thing about teaching a man to fish. So for us, it's not so much teaching a man to fish, but more maybe help dig up the dam and throw in fish so that they can grow, and then the community can keep fishing from it.
What a fantastic analogy. Yeah, I think it's one of the things that we tend to do is we look at problems in isolation and we think, let's fix a problem, but then you might just be creating a whole lot more in that process.
Absolutely.
So, absolutely, yeah. And then specifically in Africa, I spoke to Jude about the same thing. We think of Africa as this one place, like America is this homogenous place, but it couldn't be further from the truth. Each country has uniquely different logistical challenges, cultural challenges, or nuances rather. How do you find dealing with that? Like, it's not one solution fits all type of situation, is it?
You'll actually be surprised.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you'll actually be surprised. You're in Kenya and you're like, oh, am I in South Africa? Am I still at home? So actually, the underlying challenges and the underlying opportunities are very similar. Yeah.
Universal.
Yeah, it's universal. It's just a different location, but it's let's say, for example, we struggle with moving a lot of our research to commercialization. That is everywhere. It's in Kenya, it's in Ethiopia, it's also in America, and it's also in the UK. So it is, you quickly discover that if you can then start to map pathways, you can then start to apply them in different localities. We recently had a conference or a gathering with our various partners that are working on research to commercialization. And you quickly discover that, it's the same challenges, same opportunities, same barriers to market. Maybe it can start to be intricacies, maybe at regulations level, but the customer is the customer. If I need to buy a jacket, whether it's here or in Kenya,
the need remains the same.
The need remains the same. For you to appeal to a customer, the science is the same. So if you can actually, as an ecosystem, figure out a solution, then you can start to apply it everywhere, because obviously you'll have different challenges by various groups. And then whichever group you are then dealing with, you can then say, oh, we've seen you before, we saw you in South Africa, and here's a solution that we provided you, and so forth. So you can start to roll out all these solutions.
Interesting. That makes a whole lot of sense. Talk to me about some of your specific partners, who they are, and what types of problems they solve. I'm assuming there's a lot, but let's look at like 3 of your favorites.
Okay.
If you're allowed to choose.
Yeah, I mean, there's some that accuse me of favoritism. One of my favorites is a recent partner, a Johannesburg-based company, and they specialize in developing and helping to establish ecosystems. In 2023, they worked with the Rwandan Space Agency.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, to help them map out the space ecosystem and to identify some interventions that the agency can start to help implement in getting the sector up and running. Their space agency is very new. It was established in 2022.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So now we went in there, we helped help them with the development of strategic plans, with the development of business plans, and we then, at the end of the program, ran a pilot incubation program. That was amazing, and we got 9 amazing entrepreneurs, startup companies, or innovators that are aspiring to be in that space, and the work can only grow from there. I was happy that we could be part of laying that foundation for the space sector in the country. Similar work we're now replicating in Kenya. We've now identified some very basic interventions that we can start with in the sector. It's amazing. I mean, even for you, if I was to say what are some of the opportunities in the space sector, like you think it's about going to Mars,
but NASA immediately.
Yeah. So there's more than that, and so they're doing similar type of work in Kenya, and now one of the main activities that we'll be carrying out is just PR and awareness, just for the normal men in the street to know that here is a sector and here are some opportunities for children to also be aware that here are some opportunities for engineers to know that you don't have to go fixing cars alone. You can also consider a career in the space sector. So that's one of them. My other favorite is in Ethiopia, University of Gonda. You see, in research and innovation, they talk about this value of depth, where you have research and you have commercialization, and there's this gap in between. So most of the time you find there's very enthusiastic scientists, they develop
the academics,
technologies, but then after the technology is developed, they go back and they find another problem to solve, and they pile up all these beautiful innovations that nobody ever looks at them.
You need an entrepreneur, you need a business person to actually take that into market.
Absolutely. So now the University of Gonda, they've come in there, they went and identified great seed varieties that have been developed for Ethiopia, adapted to Ethiopia's climate, and helped move these seed varieties to farmers. And the farmers we decided to work with, it's mainly females, or those that are female-led households. Some farmers that have disabilities, because we normally say, oh no, your hand is not working. Oh, poor you, just sit there and we'll come give you a piece of bread. So here we were deliberate in going out and say, let's work with people that have disabilities, and let's adapt some of these technologies so that they're able to work with them. And we did very well, and the outputs that we're able to get out of there, amazing. The other project in Ethiopia is University of Jimma, where we helped establish an incubation program, an incubation hub. The university donated a building, and we helped renovate it and bought equipment needed. We helped them develop guidelines and so forth. And in turn, the Ministry of Education in Ethiopia is looking to visit South Africa and start to learn how our own incubation programs are working. And I'm excited to be hosting them in a few months or so.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Tell me, like, the big question I have, firstly, this is fascinating work, and I think the importance of having African role models for Africans and African facilities for Africans, like a space agency, like you always aspire to these American standards. Now it's someone from here.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
It's got such an impact on the psychology. I just love that.
Yeah, and what I like is that the UK government also is not just throwing in money and saying, okay, solve it. They're also saying, okay, if there are resources that you'd like to come and learn from, come over. So we had a number of officials from South Africa, Kenya, and Rwanda that we supported to visit several institutions in the UK, December 2023, for them to get exposure. Because sometimes you can dream as far as you can see, right? Yeah.
That is so true. I mean, like if we're, dream as far as you can see. That I won't even say anything more than that. The question I have for you, you just touched on that, like, which is a great segue. But like, what is the UK doing involved in Africa? Like, what is the plan here?
I think the UK does have relationships with South Africa. I think it was the beginning of the year when a member of the UK family, what he was doing is just to come to affirm the relationships that the UK has with South Africa and to also pledge even more support for South Africa. In my view, this can be a very wrong view. It's that we are being supported by some of these developed countries to start to develop our own solutions, because there are certain challenges that are a problem for us as a continent that might not be a problem for those developed countries. For common challenges, we could still collaborate or borrow or even buy some of these solutions. But for challenges that are still unique to us, they're helping us to go out there, set up an incubation program, find your own ways of getting the startups or supporting the startups so that they can go to market. So let's use this available aid to try and advance and contribute to the development of our economies, our countries, jobs for the young people, health for the expectant mothers, and so forth.
I think it's a copywriting principle as well for entrepreneurs, but no one's going to write copy the way that you do. No one's going to solve Africa's problems the way that Africans will solve.
Absolutely.
And having that access to funds and support, that just makes our job so much easier.
Yeah.
How important is it that Africans solve African problems?
I mean, what I just mentioned now about seed varieties that have been developed for the Ethiopian context. It's easy for us to go to your big seed companies and source seeds and buy and then they grow, but they don't grow so well because they were adapted for. Okay, I might not know the science behind all these, how seeds are made. What I do know is that here is a researcher who is from a community and who knows what's best for that particular community. So it's best then to take that seed and plant it in your own. Also the dimmer health. We know the challenges that some of these women in rural areas face.
Yeah.
Somebody in Atlanta cannot have an appreciation for a woman that has to walk kilometers just to go to the nearest clinic.
So far out of the frame of reference.
Yeah.
I love the example you just gave of the Ethiopian farmer solving a problem in the community, or the Ethiopian innovator. And that's also an ideal example of a small problem or a Ethiopian problem being solved, but that would have global impact maybe further down the line. Is that how you see it? Do you look to the future? Do you look at 5 years, 10 years from now, and how those problem solvings might have a global impact?
Absolutely. So when you start, I mean, we're going to a point where food security is a major problem. And in a country like Ethiopia, the devastating of climate change are starting to be felt. And these are people, like I said, it's women that are poor. They probably are not married, or they are widows, and they need to support their own families. How do we support these women to farm and to keep expanding? Contribute to the food security in the villages that they're in, not just for today, but for years to come. We don't all want to go depend on the big commercial farmers. Or actually, by the way, the Ethiopian agricultural sector is made up of the small farmers. So we keep increasing the program, the seed multiplication, and getting more farmers on the program, so that ultimately they are really a force to be reckoned with, and they are contributing substantially to food security in that area as well. So it's not just for now, but it's in the long term. You don't want them to, the example I made about fishing. You don't want them to keep coming back and say, oh, now it's over. They need to now develop systems that can run for years to come. And also, the seeds or the technologies that we've selected is very much aligned to the Ethiopian National Development Plan. So that also ensures that there is sustainability. Government has taken a keen interest in the work that we do, and they've come in and said, how can we assist? So that is definitely not a program that is going to stop when RISA stops.
Yeah.
It will run hopefully for years to come.
That's fantastic. I also think if you can find success in one of the most extreme environments and extreme circumstances possible, that's going to just be can you imagine what you can achieve in environments that's not as extreme? So yeah, IP. Do you protect the IP as well?
What we do is we encourage programs to have strong relationships with their IP officers, their lawyers, to make sure that they are protected.
Okay.
There are projects where there is research to commercialization, and there is definitely something to protect. They definitely need to, if they need to register their IP, we do provide that support where necessary.
Fantastic. So we're here at the South African Innovation Summit, and I think the word innovation is thrown around loosely, but there's always the kind of opposite of it. It's a challenge. Like there's a challenge or a problem that needs solving in an innovative and creative way. How important is it that people come together in a room, the private sector, NPOs, funders, founders, all of them sit around the table and have conversations and see if there are opportunities? How important is that?
Yeah, so at RISA, we actually subscribe to the 9 ecosystem strengthening goals by IDEA, and they look at the various elements that have to be in place for an ecosystem to thrive. And all those stakeholders that you mentioned, they all have their seats at the table.
Yeah.
And once one of them is not there, unfortunately, the ecosystem doesn't do as well. Let's say you spoke about the funders. If they are not there, unfortunately, we'll sit there with our brilliant ideas. But if we do have the funds, but we don't have the ideas, I think yesterday they spoke about the dry powder. It was the first time I heard about it, that there is money that's 1 billion that's unspent. So the money is there, but we don't have, I don't know, maybe we don't have worthy innovations to invest in.
Or we're not communicating in a way that we understand each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The ecosystem is not talking to each other. So that ecosystem approach. And I think that at RISA, this is not our official tagline, but maybe we should consider adopting it that if you want to go fast, go alone. But you want to go far, go together.
Perfect. What a great note to end that on. Thank you very much. We can just chat for a little bit longer.